Peace of Mind podcast merges business and psychology.
These topics are designed to inspire solutions for entrepreneurs to provide insights that improve their overall mental health and business success.
Welcome to the Peace of Mind podcast, where we merge topics related to business and psychology. Today, we are having a conversation with a female business owner, Anna Lee, who owns a business here in Riverside called Women in Tandem. She is an advocate. She started her profession off as an attorney. How amazing is that? A female attorney. And she is able to share with us resources on how do you actually start a business from idea formation all the way to bringing it into existence. We are so excited about this conversation that we have with Anna Lee today on Peace of Mind. Welcome to the Peace of Mind podcast, where we merge business and psychology topics together. Anna, we are so happy to have you here.
I'm thrilled. I'm so happy that you asked me to be here.
Yes, definitely. So for today, we are here in Riverside, California.
My hometown.
Yes, we have been through everything that's been taking place. We've been able to have guests all the way from Dallas, Texas, a couple of other different places, but it's nothing like home. Like you said, this is hometown for you.
This is. My elementary school's down the street that I went to.
Yes.
For us, that's important to us in terms of giving back to the community and being part of the community. And we went to college here in Riverside. That's where we met. And actually, he graduated from high school here in Riverside.
I went to Sierra Middle School, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes. And then where did you graduate from? So
Ramona
we can start
High
this
School.
right.
That's okay. The Rams.
That's okay.
Because I already know.
My husband's on the school board now, so he loves all the schools. And I do. I love our school system's pretty good.
Yes, for sure. Yes, definitely. And we are actually proud entrepreneurs here in Riverside. It means a lot. Like I said, it's, that's where our love story begins is here in Riverside. So we're definitely glad that you're here. Share a little bit about who you are. So I know you said you went to elementary, middle school, and high school here, but share a little bit about, you mentioned you're married.
Yes.
And, your professional background.
I was born and raised here in Riverside, and I actually met my husband in high school.
Oh, wow.
So we had started dating in high school, and then I went to school in San Diego for, undergraduate in political science, and then I ended up volunteering for AmeriCorps, so it's like the Domestic Peace Corps, and I was stationed in the southeast region of the United States. Wow. So we did a variety of projects, 10-person team, sleeping on church floors. We had a budget of what we could spend at Walmart for food with this team of 10, and we did trail building, we did tutoring, we worked at a children's hospital, worked at an orphanage, and it was still called an orphanage, but we did a variety of projects, and that was kind of when I was figuring out what do I really want to do. After that, I came back to Riverside. I worked on a local city council campaign while I was applying for law school.
Okay.
So I went back to San Diego, went to law school. I ended up having an internship with the public defender's office in San Diego. I did not think I wanted to do criminal. I did not think I wanted to be in a courtroom. And as soon as I had that internship, that's what I wanted to do. I ended up getting hired in San Bernardino with the public defender's office. So I moved back to Riverside. Started my job. I think 4 weeks later, my husband and I got married.
Wow.
And then I was at the public defender's office for 10 years. And during that time, had 3 kids. So we have a 9, 7, 5-year-old right now.
So as an attorney, you got married
Yes.
and had kids.
Yes.
Because a lot of times people think that females, that you put things off, like getting married and having children, for your career. So you were able to do both.
Yes. And I think that was what led me to create a business that wasn't that, because it was a real struggle to really maintain and manage and feel like I was doing the best at all the roles I had. Mom, wife, attorney, community member. It was a challenge to juggle it all.
Yep. So when you think about just the whole idea of juggling everything, you move into starting a business, but typically a business starts because there's a need.
Right.
Right. And so it's a matter of fulfilling that need. So talk to us about that journey. And then also, while you're talking about that, go into depth about Women in Tandem.
So I had realized that I had that demographic of women my age that I was getting connected to, whether it was a mom's group or the preschool moms or some of us that were rushing to community meetings, and it's like, oh, well, we need a babysitter, and then you're sharing babysitters, and then you're doing a fundraiser together with other women. And I realized I was lucky to be surrounded by driven women who were working really hard, but we were all kind of complaining about the same thing. Like, I just don't feel like I'm doing my best. And none of us were shying away from hard work. It wasn't, we don't want to do this. We want to do this and we want to do that. And so when I started recognizing that there was a lot of distractions, so whether we were home, so one of my last years, I ended up being part-time, just to see could I manage a little bit better. And the time I was home, I was still having the same issues, feeling distracted, feeling a little bit lonely, like I have to do this, I have to do this, and I don't have time to socialize. I don't have time to do these other things because everything's wrapped up in kids or work. So even though the time I was home, I was still feeling that same loneliness, distracted, kind of dreaming about this idea, but who is a safe place to start exploring those ideas? Yes. And when I started talking to other women, so one of my big tips about going down that road was really market research and customer discovery, like talking to people. Would you want a space outside of your house? And I would get, well, I already have an office. Right, but you're the boss, so do your employees come in and bug you? Do your colleagues come in? Do you feel productive there? Is it a sterile building? Because one of the things that I started realizing creating, I didn't want to go to a coffee shop. I was starting to get a little bit older.
Right.
I wasn't studying for final exams or grad school exams, and I didn't want to. I would like to go to the bathroom without having to take all my stuff with me.
Right.
So there was just little things when I would have a day off or feel like I just need to get out of my house. Mm-hmm. Because in my house, even if I was working home from a day, for a day, there was laundry, there was dishes, delivery was coming, meal prep, or somebody's coming to drop something off, and the momentum is lost. And I thought, what if there was a place that was just as comfortable as my house, so aesthetically pretty, but that I didn't have to clean up, I didn't have to do the dishes, I could focus for an hour and had everything I needed.
Right.
Chargers, coffee, champagne if I needed it, to meet with other people that were doing work as well.
Like-minded, hardworking, driven.
Mm-hmm. So that was kind of where the idea started to form, was I would like this. If I have a day off, I'd love a few hours just to go somewhere that I didn't have to create myself.
You know, you talked about the importance of an idea. And I think what happens is a lot of times when people want to start a business, it's the execution of that idea, where there's a big chasm between the idea and the execution of it. So talk about that evolution and give people that some specific how-tos about how to migrate from idea and conception to actually pulling it off.
So I think one of the first things is take a step in the direction. So I thought, okay, this is an idea. So I started visiting other women's workspaces. So I actually went up to San Francisco. I called other ones. There was one, the Riveter in Marina del Rey, the Perline in Portland. I actually called them and asked. And I'm such a scaredy cat. Like I kind of emailed and then I called and said, I'm not trying to like steal your model or do what you're doing, but I'm thinking about starting this in a smaller scale. Obviously Riverside's a smaller city than those big cities. And I had specific questions I was asking. I mean, and one step two is just the Google search. What do you think you want to create? Does it already exist? What do you like about those models? What do you not like about those models? So I actually went and visited those spaces. I attended a conference that was for creative women with a social justice model. Okay. So they were, whether it was they sell clothes, but 10% goes to victims of domestic violence, or they move to another country and they're creating goods and helping local people generate jobs and opportunities. I had never been to a conference like that before, where there was some good, but it was aesthetically beautiful. It's like you can create pretty things and something that is in your skill set and still do good with it.
Right.
Because I remember getting a little bit of pushback. So you want to create a pretty space? And I was like, yes, I do. Because the need of a nurturing space, when I did market research and ask, so I think the more you can narrow that clientele, so keep asking the people you think you're going to serve, what do they want? because I never would have thought natural light was the number one thing. When I asked about their current office spaces or their home office spaces, natural light, I never would have thought that was going to be an answer that I got. So I think taking a step in the right direction, the idea to the thing is figuring out who your customer is and what do they actually want. Because that kept changing and pivoting. I originally thought I'd get some stay-at-home moms. That's not my target. Not that they don't need it, but they're in a season of they've adapted and they have a community in other places. They don't need this community yet, or they don't have the disposable income to pay for an extra space to have that community and do more. So that was huge in actually interviewing women and being curious. So I'd ask somebody, who did you use for your legal? I was a lawyer, but I did criminal defense. Okay. But I asked somebody else with a small business, who are you using for your legal? Somebody I trusted, or somebody I like their branding. Who did you use?
And asking them
and
why.
being curious.
Yes.
And thinking about how many of those businesses that are out there get started and they just start to implement, but they don't know what they know, or they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And, there's a process that talks about unconsciously incompetent, right?
Right.
I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
And so sometimes we go out with this idea and this conception about what we think we know, and we put all the time and the money and the effort in there, not to realize that we didn't hit the right target.
Right.
And then we end up failing. And that's what happens to a lot of businesses. So that's a very, very important point that you bring up.
And I think being okay to fail.
Yes,
so
yes.
There are so many things that changed from the day I opened that I am a planner. I'm scared of change. I had this whole plan in place. And the more conversations I had once I opened the doors, it pivoted again. It changed the language I used, who I was. So I don't want people to think, don't try something because you're scared. Yes. Because even in that failure, like I remember thinking 6 months in, if the place burns down tomorrow, I am so glad I did this. Like you did something and you did execute something.
And what I liked is that you had an idea of what you wanted, and you still decided to say, it's not just about what I want, but what is needed.
What's the marketplace out
there?
Right.
And so you still had a very clear direction, and you were still very intentional, and you still were able to keep the elements that you felt were really important based on what you desired to do. But you weren't so rigid in that you had to have it the exact way that you conceived it.
Right.
And I think sometimes, especially for people who are very ingenuitive, people who have a lot of business ideas, it's not always in their repertoire to know, let's do this market research and let's allow that to guide us so that way I can be successful.
And I think being open-minded, if it is somebody who has a lot of business ideas, start going down the road to one. Yes. And it might bring up, nobody wants this, but they keep saying, it'd be cool if you did this.
Right.
If that conversation keeps happening, then maybe that's the next direction you go in.
And speak a little bit more about Women in Tandem so that way our listeners know what you have created.
So Women in Tandem is a lounge and workspace for women to focus, connect, and get stuff done. We're located in downtown Riverside, and one of our goals is really just to make women more efficient so they can serve the community they love. So I talked about it being driven women. We have a physical space that is beautiful inside. You want to snuggle up on a couch or go in a cubicle. We have a vanity area so women on the go can get ready before a meeting, between meetings. I give the example that it was traumatizing to my children if I came home from work and then my husband and I were leaving for a meeting. You came home and now you're leaving. So a spot to stop. We have coffee so you don't have to get up. We have programming and resources. So if you are starting a small business, we have a series with legal introduction, how to form your business, what you should know, accounting, what you should pay for, what you shouldn't pay for, insurance. We have different introductions for business. And then we have lighter things like bring your organizer, bring your planner. What goals are you setting? We have a life coach that comes in once a month to kind of do a reset and a recharge so people are intentional about their week and can stay motivated.
Exactly. I've been to your space, and when you talked about natural lighting, I don't think that if I would have been part of your market research that I would have added that, but I can say that I have found it to be very beneficial. And so the people who you did your market research with definitely was right on in that particular area of adding that. Now, there are so many emotions that go with starting a business that can transpire within you. Anxiety, you mentioned the fear,
Yes.
disappointment from time to time. Of course, there's the good feelings of joy and elation, but oftentimes it is different feelings that sometimes can be associated with mental health factors. Share with us your journey of going through just different trials and discoveries as well as you were opening your business and even as you have operated Women in Tandem.
I've always struggled with anxiety. I didn't really recognize it till I was a little bit older, but being competitive in school and in sports and soccer and
competitiveness.
I was very competitive, and I started to realize I had anxiety, and it would be, I wanted everything to be perfect, and I was a scaredy cat. So the fact that I even opened a business is shocking to me, like even when I say that, because so if I can do it, anybody can do it. But I like the security of a job. I worked for a county agency. I was going to get retirement. I had hours to show up, and it still didn't feel right. So although certain of my values, like believing in advocacy for others and things, were aligned, because I did love that job, but it wasn't all my values aligned in one.
Right.
So it almost seemed like the anxiety was easier to deal with because all my values were aligned in what I was building.
That's interesting.
So it was like walking through the fear of what if it's not good enough, but these are all my values aligned. So it made decisions easier. But I will, like the week we opened, the month we opened, I lost 15 pounds. Back now, but I was so stressed out and I wasn't sleeping, but it still felt I was doing something
because it was aligned.
It was, and it felt like a roller coaster. So I think having safe people around you, so the people that you can share all the anxieties, like I don't think I can do this.
Right.
The people that will cheer you on and be your cheerleader, the ones that'll give you a kick in the butt when you need it, like it's okay.
Right.
And pacing yourself, like knowing when it's a day that it's a wash. So we recently reopened after being shut down during COVID. And yesterday I locked myself out of the business.
Oh, no.
While I was there. I've never done that before. Wow. Waited for a locksmith. And I had this long list of to-dos. And I just thought, God's telling me to chill out.
Right.
Because I had nothing. I didn't have my calendar. I didn't have anything outside with me. So I just sat outside.
A moment of peace.
I had a moment, and it's that gut check. You have to pace yourself.
Yes.
You cannot keep it up. You'll want to when you know your values are aligned. Like, I want to do the work. I'm not shying away from it. But I think there's going to be anxiety. There's going to be fear. And as long as you figure out what your core values are, and I know sometimes people like kindness, respect, but figure out what yours are. Because I know that mine it falls under umbrellas of words, but organization, advocacy, authenticity, presentability, like all those things are important to me. And they're all wrapped up in Women in Tandem in a different way, which if I told you those four, it's like, I don't get how it aligns, but I know. Yeah. I know how those things, and I know who I'll partner with. I know who I will work. So you had rented our space for an event for a breast cancer fundraiser. That was aligned with every one of our values and one of the easiest events I've ever done. That makes, because you'll go through decision fatigue. You're going to be exhausted having a new business. If you know your values, it's easy to decide who you're going to work with, what decisions you're making. It'll just make that process so much easier.
I definitely can see through your business how your values are for sure aligned. And in terms of the anxiety, I think that many women experience that. Not just women, I mean, even men, but I think particularly for women, that's definitely a common feeling and emotion that we experience. So we appreciate you for being open, because I think that, if we can have one listener be able to say, oh, wow, I have been experiencing anxiety, and now I know that I can move forward. I am so grateful, because there are so many. I think about what Women in Tandem means to Riverside and to the women here in Riverside. So if we can inspire at least one other person who has experienced anxiety, because anxiety can end up even going all the way full blown to a panic attack, and where our heart is racing, and where, you know, different aspects within even our mental capacity can be impacted for just a few moments. And it may feel at that moment that you're losing everything.
Right.
And it's a very real emotion and a very real experience. And so you've been able to overcome that.
Yeah. And I think it's learning coping skills and giving. So I think that feeling you would get in Women in Tandem, we say we'd love for you to walk in and just feel like you can take a deep breath.
Yes.
Don't apologize for what you did or didn't do. Come in, and I've learned coping skills. And those are the things, I think when I say I want to make women more efficient, I stress out all the time, and I'm so scared of everything. And so the things I want to share is, this is an easier way to be an okay mom. Like, your kids are going to be okay.
Right.
Here's some efficient, like, chore charts. Here's this. Or don't stress out about learning everything about starting a business. Just start here.
Right.
Because I've had those, or breathing exercises. I used to think all that stuff was a joke, or positive memes or affirmations, until I was suffering and needed to change the language in my head and stop the "you can't do this."
Right.
What do you think you're doing? Why, like, you're not making any money? Why did you leave your job? But what's my evidence?
Right.
And I can't wait to see who I'm going to meet today. Because
Right.
growing up in Riverside, I knew a lot of people, but my affirmation was, I can't wait to see who I'm going to meet today. And I would get introduced to somebody that, oh my gosh, you're doing amazing things, and I didn't know.
It's so important when you talk about positive affirmations, because I was the same way. I was thinking, oh, that's just some
That's for
phony
the people
stuff.
who need it.
Yes,
I don't
exactly,
need that. That's not going to work.
And really, those of us who thought that positive affirmations weren't real, we had limiting beliefs.
Right.
And those limiting beliefs sometimes happens on such a subconscious level that we don't even know that we're engaging in self-sabotage. And so opportunities come and they leave, and we didn't even focus on it because it didn't even enter into our mental space.
Right.
Because we didn't have the belief that it was something that was even possible. And so, you know, I loved what you talked about. And the other thing that I loved what you talked about was the whole idea about your core values. Because a lot of times in our business, we talk about, what are your whys? Like, why are you engaging in this process called entrepreneurship?
Right.
And if you don't understand clearly what your core values are, you're going to fall for anything, because lots of people encounter us with these great ideas and these great thoughts about what we should do as a business. And so if our core values aren't clearly aligned, then we can end up just going to and fro and not even realize that we're not going anywhere. You know, and sometimes I talk about, you know, just walking in circles. You're making motion, but you're not moving and progressing.
Forward. No.
So that
And especially when you're starting a new business, you think, I'm going to say yes to everything.
Yes,
I'm going to
yes.
speak here. I'm going to do this. Sure, let's try that event. And if you acknowledge this is a season where I'm saying yes to see what sticks, that's one thing.
Right.
But otherwise, you are just spinning in circles if it's not aligning. And that
100%.
is devastating and exhausting. And you're not going to feel like you're serving. And you need to be ready. You're going to lose people that you thought were your people.
Yes.
But they just may be in a separate circle.
Right.
They're not gone. They're
right.
just in an outer circle.
And speaking of your circle, when you left your profession of being a defense attorney, how anxiety provoking was that in terms of, because you mentioned you left that, in which was a stable, secure, you were married with 3 kids, and just a lot of times the profession of being a lawyer, the credibility and the prestige,
the
and
identity.
accomplishment and the identity.
What do you do? I'm a
Yes.
lawyer. That
That's
was an
right.
easy answer. And I said that out loud after I'm scared. I don't know what to say. I'm a lawyer, and now I'm a stay-at-home mom. And not that there was anything wrong with staying at home, but so I stayed home for a year while I was kind of figuring out, is this what I want to do? And like I said, take a step in the direction, because I actually called the retirement board and found out, okay, if I leave my job now, what am I entitled to, or how long do I have to stay before that jumps up? And luckily, like, it would have been a significant amount of time. And I was like, okay, that's clear enough. I'm not staying for that. So taking that little step, it was a tangible, okay, that's what I'm going to lose out. And I think keep making decisions in your life. I went part-time to figure out, is this adjustment any better?
Right.
That allowed me, when it was time to leave, I was leaving a part-time income because we had adjusted to a part-time income. I wasn't leaving full income. And that wasn't a decision that I was going part-time because I was going to leave to start a business. It was like, let me try to make an adjustment. And that still wasn't enough. So, and I think have a circle of people around you. I think there's things you're going to think are so difficult, but looking back, I had a circle of people around me at the same time that were experiencing something similar. Somebody who had left her profession to become a life coach, and she's amazing at it, and that was my friend. Oh, wow. So having these conversations and limiting beliefs and changing common sense questions she would ask that wasn't a therapist, but it was like it, but common sense questions. Why can't you what's your evidence that you can do this? What's your evidence that...
Yes, instead of what's your evidence that you can't, what is your evidence that you can? I love that. Yes, definitely. One thing I would say is that you've created in a space that people feel safe, people can collaborate. Did you have any idea, especially with today's times, how needed that type of space would be?
I knew that I needed it. And I know a lot of people say you find a need and then that's what you're doing. I am so glad it started because it validated. So yes, I thought it would be that kind of space, but in times now it's validated the importance of having a safe space. And I think when I originally thought of values, I knew my values, but in our policies, even to be a member, it was outlined so that I don't want to put other people in a position like this isn't the right spot for you. But I want them to understand, are you in agreement with these policies? Because once you are, any disagreements that happen between people are okay because we agree with these policies of like lowering the pay gap for women, trying to put women in political office. We're respectful to everybody. There's like a conduct clause. There's no shaming in here. If we find out on social media or things like that. So we have a spectrum of ladies, but they all agree on those core policies. So I think it's been super important to make it a safe space. And I think people have been, I'm nervous about speaking publicly with what I believe in my heart and filtering that through a business lens because I know what the values of my business are actually a lot easier because if I think, I might upset that person, well, that's not the core value of my business. And I'm sorry if I upset you, but this is who I'm serving. And I'm not going to feel good about myself if I'm placating to different constituencies. I want to keep conversations open. So I tread a little bit lightly about being extreme about things, but I think it gives people a safe space to say, hey, you said that. Can I actually talk to you a little bit more about that? Because I have people in my world too that, can we talk about that a little bit?
And I think that's what I have enjoyed about the space that you have created is that you are open to different perspectives, but it is the key word that I hear you repeat is shaming. And I think that is the most important part is that we all have the liberty to be able to critically think. And the way that we critically think is shaped by our experiences. My experiences are shaped as a Black female, for me in particular. And it's important for me to not feel shamed because of my experiences as a Black female. Now, you may not necessarily understand my experiences. You may not even agree with some of the opinions that I have based on my experiences. And that's okay because we can agree to disagree. We can agree to understand each other. And that is what your space has created because you do not allow shaming.
No, and this is the community we live in, and this is the community we want to continue to serve. And if I want my kids to live here, I'll give one. When we closed, we started a Facebook group for our members. It was something I'd planned to do, but just so they could connect because now we weren't seeing each other in person. When things got real aggressive on Facebook or Instagram, social media comments, I was feeling so down and hurt that this is the community I live in. Like did I ignore people's beliefs? Did I not think it was real? Because I thought we're lucky to be in Riverside. At least what I thought, like we're progressing, we're doing these things, and it was a little bit of a shock, and I felt so hurt. And then I thought, I don't want to be the person that says, well, you're stupid because you say that, or I'm going to unfollow you, or I'm going to do this, because it needs to be part of the conversation if we're going to keep changing things. And so I think the respect isn't just, oh, well, I respect that we're going to disagree. I'm not going to shame you because we disagree.
Exactly.
But I do want to know more, because then maybe when I hear that 5 more times, it's not so different from other people's experiences, and say, oh, maybe I do need to take that a little bit more seriously.
I think it's about helping others to be more informed, because once we are informed, it helps us to guide our thinking.
Yeah, one of our core values is seek first to understand before you seek to be understood. And I think if we could just live our lives based on that and use empathy, I think the world would be better. And I know that sounds like utopia, but
I don't think so at all.
that that we have the capacity to empathize. And if we could just say, you know what, let me put myself in this person's world. Let me see the world through their lens and their perspective. I think at that point, we'd be so much less inclined to judge, because oftentimes we put our values and impose them on others. And our experiences are different. And so I think that the way things are moving and progressing right now, that we're moving towards that. I believe we have a long way to go, but we're moving in the right direction, I believe. And so as you talk about just, launching out and starting a business and having this, being married and having kids and moving from this prestigious position, because I know exactly what you're talking about. I used to be a school principal, and I said, hey, what do you do? Oh, I'm a school principal. Oh, wow. Then now, what do you do?
It's easy to put in a box.
That's right.
That title is easy to put in a box.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So what advice would you give to those individuals who are thinking about starting a business, who are conceptually just trying to picture the idea of making that shift and transition?
I want to be realistic. It's really hard.
Yeah. Put that out there.
It's not for
so
the faint
true.
of heart, and it's really, really, really hard.
Yes.
I did not expect. I've dealt with anxiety. I went to law school. I've done these things, but this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And I think it's you're relying on yourself to make it happen.
Right.
So that's extremely hard. So get ready, because it will be really hard. Use your resources of who you have around you already.
That's good.
And if it's the cheerleader, the person you cry to, but then the person who is kicking you in the butt. And then if it's, you don't have to have a ton of money to start either. I think people then let me save up. That's always helpful, but I think you're a little bit more discerning when, okay, I need to hire this person. But is that, we were talking about a podcast. Is it that important that I start with a podcast for my business? It's not for mine. But in 18 months, it's on the list.
Right.
So I think to be ready of what you're going to seek out, so you can be discerning of where you're going to put your money. Start taking steps in those directions. Know that it's going to be really hard, but there's so many tools set up to help people, and find the best people that do something. So you don't need an entire company that it's, oh, they do this and they do that for me and they do that. That might be great, but you might be better off with that website person is awesome and that graphic design person is awesome, and they're not in the same company. So I think it's hard figuring out where you're putting all your money and know you're going to fail. Like, you made a mistake. I had an event that I didn't love. Not going to do that again. And really tally as you start making decisions.
Yes.
And I kept an actual calendar journal to say what I had done.
Okay.
Even if it was looking into a database. Even if I never bought one. I mean, I did, but it was looking in, or I went to look at rental spaces. All those little things that you're doing, don't forget all those steps that you're taking, and you can still do it while you have a full-time job. Just keep taking a step of what would that look like, and ask for help if you have a mentor. And if you don't have a mentor, ask somebody you trust if they could introduce you to somebody.
Those are amazing tips on the overall sense. And to me, one of them was the fact that you have to rely on yourself in the very beginning. You are the driver. So for females, how would you adjust that piece of advice?
I think you should join Wyndham and Tandem, because we help you with all those resources. But I do think find another, and I don't necessarily believe women need to find another women mentor. I think they need both. I think you need a female mentor, and I do think you need a male mentor, because I still think we live in a time where a male speaking on your behalf and bringing you in those circles is still helpful, extremely helpful. So I think if you're a female, know that you can do it.
I love that.
We can do a lot.
Yes.
and you can do it. But don't think you have to do it on your own either. So figure out what that support system looks like. Look where you've churned in the past when you've had an issue. And think about, okay, if I'm going to have that issue going forward, like one of my big things is I was not the greatest at balancing my checkbook or any finances. I knew that was a priority, that I was going to have an accountant that was helping me.
Yes.
Not because I'm weak or I can't do it. I did Gallup Strength Finders. My strengths are these other things.
Yes.
So knowing what my strengths are, instead of trying to build up my weaknesses while you're building a business, don't try and do that at the same time. Like, figure out what your weaknesses are. And I did not do this. And looking back, I wish I had, is find a partner who shared the vision, because you experience a lot of decision fatigue. And I was scared to give up my vision, but knowing what my weaknesses are, if I could have found that right partner that I knew would handle those, I think that would have been helpful in sharing the responsibility.
Right. Definitely. Thank you so much for being here. The pieces of resources that you have given today for the listeners have been such a source of encouragement, as well as tangible pieces of information that will help people to make a decision, to start a business, to move it from being in your heart and in your belly actually to a tangible business. So, man, this has been such a great time with you. Share with the listeners how they can find you, because I'm pretty sure there will be some that will want to know how to find you.
So you can check out our website, womenintandem.com. You can find me on Instagram at womenintandem, and you can email me, Anna, at womenintandem.com. And I'm more than happy. I have resource sheets and programming that we do that I'd be happy to have a one-on-one conversation with anybody.
Thank you so much.